What is up, guys? Emmanuel Jones here, and it's time to do our full NFL 2024 um, predictions for the 2024 NFL season. So we're gonna get started here now. Before I give you my full NFL record prediction for a 2024 season, don't forget to put a thumbs up to like the video, subscribe to my channel for more options, and comment down in your opinion below to see how good will you think your team will be. So we're gonna get started here. So basically, we gonna get started with the AFC first. So we got the AFC East. So I got the first team I gotta start is the Buffalo Bills. I got the Bills going 11-6. It's because why? Because it's Josh Allen and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and they got a good coach in Sean McDermott. The offensive coordinator in Joe Brady calling plays has worked out really well for last year because Ken Dorsey was awful last year. But you gain and upgrade the help. And then, I don't know what their defense coordinator will be, but I know Sean McDermott is a good defensive coach. But I have questions at the wide receiver position of who's going to be their number one receiver because I believe that Curtis Samuel is their number one receiver. Maybe Keon Coleman can step up. Maybe Khalil Shakir. We know Dalton Kincaid's a stud tight end. They still got James Cook in the backfield. So they got multiple weapons that Josh Allen that the Bills can work with on offense. Um, their all line's okay, but the defense has probably taken major step back because we know Matt Milano's going to be out for majority of the time. We don't know when. So their defense must have took a huge hit. But they still got some young guys who can play at a high level because I know their secondary is solid. Their linebackers are good. Their pass rush is really solid. So, yeah, I think the Bills 11-6 should be good enough for them to make the playoffs or maybe win division. Next, I have the New York Jets at 11-6, which I think the Jets will be back in the playoffs once again because, they got Aaron Rodgers right now, which he could be a little bit regressing a little bit because he's getting older and he's coming off that Achilles injury. The O line did improve by adding Tyron Smith, which I really like. The receiving corps did have a huge upgrade by adding Mike Williams go along with Garrett Wilson. We know that the running game is going to be good. The defense is really solid and is going to keep them in a lot of games. Now, the weakness I think the Jets could be their offensive line of the pass protection because they had an issue last year with Zach Wilson, but now is with Aaron Rodgers. So as long as Rodgers stays healthy, I think the Jets have a chance to get back in the playoffs. So I think 11-6 is good enough for the Jets to make the playoffs. I got the Miami Dolphins at 9-8 because I just feel like Miami is going to take a step back this year because their schedule is pretty tough, and I'm not really sure if they're going to be able to compete with some good teams because every time when they play against good teams with a winning record, Tua starts to struggle. And Tua, he's a good quarterback, but he's not great. But he's not really close to top 10. But I think Tua, the Dolphins, can definitely be a team where they can be like a 10 or 11 win team like they were last year because of the explosiveness on offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But they also added Odell Beckham and Jonnu Smith to help. Raheem Morris and Devon Achane are studs at running back. Offensive line is okay, but not great. Defensively, they lost some pieces like Christian Wilkins and Andrew Van Ginkel. But they just added like some guys like Chop Robinson to the draft, Jordan Brooks to like help out. But the sad news is that Shaq Barrett, quit. And they also added Jordan Poyer and Kendall Fuller in the secondary, which that's nice. So they got some pieces there, but the defense coordinator is a question mark, which I don't really know how good the defense coordinator is going to be after losing Vic Fangio. But they still got Mike McDaniel calling plays. So, yeah, I think Dolphins will slightly go 9-8 and slightly missing out on the playoffs. Next team, you got New England Patriots. I got the Patriots at 4-13. And the reason is that because the Patriots are gonna have a new head coach, a new quarterback in Drake May, which I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Now the Patrons, I feel like they're probably not going to be a good team this year because they got a new coach. They don't got a lot of weapons on offense that can scare you. Offensive line, I feel like is a little suspect. Defensively, they lost their best pass rusher in Matt Judon, which they traded him away. But they still got young guys who can play at a high level, and their secondary is pretty young and it can get better throughout the season. So I feel like Gerard Mayo can have a lot to work with his defense. I feel like their defense can keep them in some games a little bit, but I don't think their offense is going to be able to keep up with some teams. So that's why I think the Patriots are gonna win like four games this year. Like give them like a year or two, and then get them back in the playoffs. Now we can move to the NFC North. We got the Cincinnati Bengals at 13-4. The Bengals, as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy, I think this team will be back in the playoffs once again. Now, last year they missed out on the playoffs because Joe Burrow was out for the year. So now, with him come back healthy, I think the Bengals will be strong again because, the Bengals still got the same team. Their receiving core is really good by adding Mike Gesicki. They lost Joe Mixon, but they added Zach Moss to replace him, which I think that's nice. Offensive line is pretty darn good. I like the addition of Trent Brown. The defense, it's okay, but it's getting slept on a little bit because DJ Reader left, but they added Sheldon Rankins to replace him. The linebackers are the same. Their secondary is still the same, despite them adding pieces there like Von Bell and all that. So yeah. So the Bengals defense is pretty darn good. So they should be favored to go to the Super Bowl this year. So yeah. So I think the Bengals should be back as a top team in the NFL. And I think Zach Taylor is they still got him calling plays. We know they lost our offensive coordinator, but Big Lou's a good defense coordinator too. Like he's gonna find a way to shut people down on offense. So yeah, that's why I got the Bengals at 13-4. Um, Next team got the Baltimore Ravens. I got the Ravens at 12-5. The Ravens are a fascinating team. Their roster is really good. They got Lamar Jackson, who's a two-time MVP. Derrick Henry was a good addition at running back after getting rid of Jake Dobbins and Gus Edwards, which that's a huge upgrade. Their receiving core is pretty good. They The receiving core I think is okay, but not great. But I feel like Zay Flowers can have a breakout season. Rashad Bateman can. Mark Andrews is stud at tight end. Offensive line is okay, but not great. Defensively, they're really good, but they lost Patrick Queen as their best linebacker. The secondary is very solid, but they got a new defensive coordinator going to have to deal with because Mike McDonald's gone. We're gonna see how that looks. So the Ravens. So I feel like they should be a 12-win team, maybe like 13 at best or something like that. So yeah, I think 12-5 should be good enough for the Ravens. Next team, we got the Cleveland Browns. I got the Browns at 10-7, and the reason why is that the Browns could be way too talented. The Browns are kind of way too talented. Like the Browns, they have a talented offense led by Amari Cooper, David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, and also they got Nick Chubb, who's a stud, which, a lot of people, the Browns are getting slept on because Nick Chubb is going to be out for a couple games, which I don't think the Browns will be able to run the ball. And their quarterback positions is a question mark. I don't think James Deshaun Watson's is great. I feel like he's a little bit overrated. Um, the offensive line is dealing with some injuries, but it's still solid. But if they're healthy, I think they're solid. But when they're not healthy, then they're atrocious. The defense is pretty good, which I think is going to keep them in games, but I don't really know is going to be able to hold up in games, especially when they play on the road. Their defense starts to struggle, but when it's at home, they start to play really well. So yeah. And especially Jim Schwartz is one of the best defense coordinators in the NFL. And Stephen Stefanski is a good offense play caller. So yeah. So the Browns, I think they'll be around like 9 to 11 wins, maybe 12 at best if Deshaun Watson can get back to where he was. So yeah, I like the Browns going 10-7. I don't see them going less than that. I mean, I can definitely see 8 wins at worst. If the defense starts to decline and all that, and the offense starts to decline. So yeah. Next team, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got the Steelers at 9-8. Because the Steelers, always tend to avoid a losing season because Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. The Steelers have found out that Russell will be their starter. They added Justin Fields, which is nice, which he's gonna be QB2. I have questions about the Steelers. Their receiving core is a question mark, which is not great outside of George Pickens. The running backs are really good. Jaylen Warren looks to be a stud. Najee Harris is good. Offensive line is much improved. The defense still the same, which I think it will keep them in games. And then they also got a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith, which I think is going to make the Steelers more competitive on offense. So yeah. So I don't really know if they're going to be able to compete with some teams because of a difficult schedule. Because they have to play the teams that made the playoffs last year. So yeah, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are around 9 wins, maybe 10, even though they won 10 last year. So yeah, I think the Steelers. I like the Steelers at a great range of 9-8. Now we move on to the AFC South. We got the Houston Texans at 11-6. I feel like the Texans, are in that shape to win the division, and they should be favored to win the division because the Texans, they got a really good quarterback in C.J. Stroud, who won Rookie of the Year. DeMeco Ryans is a really good head coach in a defensive mind. I like the additions they had in Joe Mixon, which I was a huge upgrade over Devin Singletary. The receiving core did get better by adding Stephon Diggs to go along with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz. Offensive line is very solid. Bobby Slow is one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL. Their defense is totally pretty good, which they added Danielle Hunter to go along and D'Amico Autry to go along with Will Anderson. Linebackers saw their secondary is pretty much the same. So yeah, so they should be back in the playoffs once again. So yeah, I got Texans at 11-6 and winning the AFC South once again. Next team, we got Jacksonville Jaguars. I got the Jags at 10-7 is because I feel like Trevor Lawrence might take a leap this year. They got a good offensive line. They got good weapons on offense with Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and Travis Etienne. Defensively, they're really good, but I don't think they're great. But they got some good young players on defense that can play at a high level. Doug Peterson is still a great coach. He does a good job keeping them competitive. So yeah, I like the Jags at 10-7. I see them at least from like 9 to like 10 wins this year. I think they're somewhere in that range from like 9 to 10 wins, or nine. I'd say like 9 to 11 wins, and then maybe like 12 at best. If everything goes right, and then 8 at worst if Trevor Lawrence declines. So yeah, so I got the Jags at 10-7. Sounds right. Next team we got Tennessee Titans. I got the Tennessee Titans going 8-9. It's because the Titans have totally had their best offseason so far by adding players to their roster. They traded for Ernest Jones. They also added Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. They added L'Jarius Sneed, Chiwetel Awuzie, and the list goes on and on. I mean, they had their really good offseason, making some moves. They added Brian Callahan as the head coach. You know, well, we're gonna see how Will Levis is. We don't really know how good Will Levis is. Like, we're gonna have to see because he got some good weapons on offense now. The offense will get better. The defense will still be the same, but it's probably gonna keep them in games. So yeah, I think the Titans are gonna go 8-9, and I'm probably gonna have them in like third place because I just kind of have a feeling that like, I have a feeling that they're better than the Colts in my opinion because I feel like Will Levis might be a little more prorated than Anthony Richardson by this point. So yeah, I have them at 9-8. Next team, you got the Indianapolis Colts. I got the Colts going 7-10. I kind of having them in last place in the AFC South is because I just have questions about the Colts, about Anthony Richardson because he coming off an injury because he only played 5 games last year. Like, what's the status for Anthony Richardson? Now, the offensive line is pretty good. Their receiving core is okay. Jonathan Taylor's a stud at running back. The I love Shane Steichen as a coach. He's a really good offense play caller. The defense is pretty good and it's going to keep them in games. But Apukan was a really huge loss for this team. But their defensive line is so solid. The linebackers are okay. The secondary, I'm really not a fan of. I'm really not a fan of their corners. And Gus Bradley, I'm really not a fan of him as well. So I think the Colts, are kind of like an average team. I think they're gonna be like they were before, like go 7-10. Like, probably like give them at least one more year to get them back in the playoffs. Unless if Anthony Richardson can have a breakout season, then I put them like up the top and say they win like 10 games. So yeah, I'd say I have the Colts at 7-10. Now let's move on to the AFC West. I got the Kansas City Chiefs at 11-6. It's because they got Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. The receiving core did get better by adding, Xavier Worthy to the draft and Hollywood Brown to go along with Travis Kelce, Rashid Rice. Pacheco's a stud. The O line is pretty solid. The defense is still pretty good, but it could regress. Because they lost to Jarius Sneed, so we're gonna see how that impacts. And I feel like Trent McDuffie is kind of your number one corner. So yeah, that's what I like to see. So I think the Chiefs, and then they got Spags as the best defensive coordinator in mind. So I think the Chiefs defense, should be the best, but not great. But I think the Chiefs, 11-6 will be good enough to win in the division because I have a feeling that the Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos aren't good. So yeah, I got the Chiefs at 11-6. Next team we got the Las Vegas Raiders. I got the Las Vegas Raiders at 7-10 is because I feel like the Raiders could surprise some people because they did make some moves by adding Christian Wilkins going along with Max Crosby and Tyree Wilson. So I think their defensive line should be strong now. The O line is still pretty good. The quarterback position is a question mark, but I know Gardner Minshew starting, and I believe Gardner Minshew is gaining more confidence in Aiden O'Connell, which I think he's kind of a better quarterback than Aiden O'Connell. They got some weapons on offense, which their receiving core is still the same. But they lost Josh Jacobs, but they got Zamir Wright, which I think he's going to be the running back one moving forward. O-line is solid. Antonio Pierce is still a really good coach, which I don't know. I have questions. Will he be the next Dan Campbell, which I don't really know. We're going to have to find out. But I think the Raiders are somewhere at least from 7 to 8 wins this year due to the quarterback position. But I would say maybe give him one more year to get him back in the playoffs. So that's why I got the Raiders at 7-10. Next team, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. I got the Chargers at 7-10 is because the Chargers, they don't really have a lot of weapons on offense. Their receiving core. I know they got Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, which I like the addition of Jim Harbaugh. But the reason why I think the Chargers are gonna go 7-10 is because their receiving core is not good enough. Which I don't know who their number one wide receiver is. Um, but they did replace Austin Eckler with some running backs. O line is still solid. The defense is still good, but it's not great, especially against a run and against a pass. Like last year, they were ranked dead last in passing yards and almost in rushing yards. Well, they still got the same pass rush as usual. So yeah. So their defense might keep them in some games, but I just don't see the Chargers as a playoff threat yet. I say give them one more year to get them back in the playoffs, and that's why I got the Chargers going 7-10. Next thing, I got the Denver Broncos. I got the Denver Broncos going 2-15. It's because the Broncos. I don't know who the quarterback's gonna be. If it's gonna be Bo, like we know Bo Nix will be the starter, which I think their schedule's a lot difficult than it was last year. So yeah, I think the Broncos are somewhere in that range from 2 wins this year. And I just feel like the Broncos, are just not like they don't really have a quarterback. Like I don't know if he's gonna be the guy for like the next couple years. Like we're gonna see. Um, they got some playmakers on offense like Cortland Sutton and Javonte Williams, but other than else, they don't really have a lot of weapons. So that's kind of scare you. O line is not great. The defense, some line is not great, but the secondary outside of Pat Surtain is not great. I mean, I love Sean Payton. I respect Sean Payton as a coach, but at the same time, the Broncos, they don't really have the talent at all to at least like contend in the AFC. So I marked them as one of the worst bottom teams in the AFC, like one of the worst teams in the AFC. So 2-15. Now we're done with the AFC. Now let's go to the NFC. Um, I got the Dallas Cowboys going 12-5 is because their schedule's a lot easier, but they're getting slept on because of the personnel coaching because they lost Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore. So now they got a new defensive coordinator and new offensive coordinator they're going to deal with. Now Dallas has some new pieces on their old line, which I think they could be doing learning curves with that. Um, the running back position looks a little bit shaky, which I don't know who their running back one will be. If it's going to be Ezekiel and Dalvin Cook, it's going to be Deuce Vaughn, it's going to be Rico Dowell. The receiving core is okay, but Brandon Cook's getting a little older. The defense is still pretty good. It will keep them in some games, but they did lose some pieces like Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler. Linebacking position outside of Kendricks isn't great. The secondary is really good, but Deron Bland's going to be out for a couple weeks due to surgery and all that. So, yeah. So, I think the Cowboys 12-5 should be good enough for Dallas to win division. So, yeah, I put the Cowboys up there. Next thing, you got the Philadelphia Eagles. I got the Eagles at 11-6 because I feel like the Eagles are a team that can definitely surprise some people. I think they could be the most talented team and the most improved team in the NFL because they added Saquon Barkley as a running back. They have a Devin White in free agency and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, so they made some moves. They also had Jahan Dawson to go along with A.J. Brown's Dallas Goedert and Devonta Smith, which that's pretty good. Offensive line is one of the best in football. Defensively, they're really good, especially I like the improvement at linebacker of Devin White, and also adding Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in secondary, along with the Eagles corner. They drafted Jadine and Mitchell in back-to-back rounds, which that's a big improvement. And I believe that the coaching will be better this year on both sides of the ball, especially with Kellen Moore calling the offense and with Vic Fangio calling the defense, which I believe that's a huge upgrade. So I believe the Eagles should be around like 11-12, at least 11-12 wins this year. So yeah, I could definitely see them win division as well, but I just feel like Dallas is gonna do it. So yeah, I got the Eagles at 11-6. Next team, we got the New York Giants at 3-14. The Giants, have a tough schedule. I have them going 3-14 because I feel like they could be one of the bottom teams in the NFC. Um, People are saying that Daniel Jones may not be the guy next year, so they could draft a quarterback this year. That's something to watch. The receiving core didn't outside of Malik Neighbors is not great. They lost Saquon. The offensive line is not great, but they got Brian Daboll as a good head coach calling the offense. And then the defense did improve by adding Brian Burns to go along with Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau, which their pass rush is solid now. Their secondary is okay, but not great. So yeah. So the Giants, I don't think they're a great team this year. So I think 3-14 is what I have, and they could be looking to the future. Next team, we have the Washington Commanders at 3-14. Is because the Commanders got a tough schedule. And, we don't know how good Jaden Daniels going to be because I heard people saying Jaden Daniels could be Rookie of the Year, which I don't know, that could be true, but I don't know. I don't think he's pro ready yet. I think Washington, losing Dawson was a huge blow to the receiving core. The running backs are okay, but not great. The offensive line needs some work, but I did like the coaching of Dan Quinn, which he did, which I don't know if he has something to do to like work his defense. With defensively, they did add some pieces like Frankie Louisville and Bobby Wagner and Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler to go along with John Allen, Deron Payne, which that's nice. The secondary did lose Curl, so their secondary is really weak. So Washington did some nice things in the offseason, but I just don't think they're there yet. So I say maybe give them a couple more years, like get them back to where they are. So I think Washington goes 3-14. Then we move on to the NFC North. We got the Detroit Lions at 11-6. And I got them first place in divisions because, the Lions feel like they're going to run people over. And their offense just has a lot of firepower. I feel like Jared Goff is a stud at quarterback because he can get the ball out quick. He can make some plays. Amon-Ra St. Brown's stud. Sam Laporte is a stud. And I feel like with the other guys like Jameson Williams, he can definitely have a breakout season. Jahmyr Gibbs is a stud coming off a rookie season. He can have a breakout season. Dave Montgomery's still there, which he's great. Offensive line is one of the best in football. Defensively, they're really good, especially in the secondary, which they did upgrade the corner position. So yeah. And they, their coaching staff is real good. I feel like Dan Campbell does a good job keeping the team competitive and ready. Ben Johnson, one of the best offense coordinators in the football, and Aaron Glenn is a good defense coordinator. So yeah. So Lions, they should be favored to win the NFC North again. So I got the Lions at 11-6. Next team, we got the Green Bay Packers. The Packers at 10-7. Um, the Packers, Jordan Love, seem like he's gonna be elite this year because he did improve as a passer through the end of the year. I like the young core they have, which the young guys like Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Romeo Dobbs, Davian Wicks. I mean, those young weapons are definitely going off. And then Josh Jacobs with a good addition at running back, which I really like. Offensive line is really good. The defense is totally talented, but it can be up and down at times. But they added a new defense coordinator, Jeff Headley, which I think he can help the defense out. So, yeah. So I believe the Packers, and then they got Matt LaFleur still calling plays on offense, I believe the Packers should be back in the playoffs once again, as they made the playoffs last year. So I think 10-7 should be good enough for Packers to make the playoffs. Next team, we have the Chicago Bears at 9-8. Now I got the Bears at 9-8 is because the Bears could have a tougher schedule, but I have a feeling the Bears could have an easier schedule than last year because they got Caleb Williams as a quarterback. They added some pieces on their team like Keenan Allen. And then they added DeAndre Swift. So yeah, and Roma Duze from the draft to go on DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. So yeah, so their receiving core is really good. O-line is solid. The defense outside of Montez Sweat isn't great. The linebacking depth is good. The secondary is fine after adding Byard in there. And then and I feel like Matt Eberflus will have something to work with to make his scheme work on defense. So I feel like if Caleb, can win Rookie of the Year, I feel like if Caleb can play really well his rookie year, I think he has a chance to win Heisman Trophy. So yeah, I think the Bears will go 9-8. I could definitely see 10-7, 11-6. Well, yeah, I got the Bears at 9-8. Next team we got the Minnesota Vikings. Um, I got the Vikings going 7-10. The reason is that the Vikings, they're just like a solid team. I believe the Vikings, like, I just don't think they're really going to be good because Sam Darnold's a star, which I don't think he's great. But I like the skill group they have on offense. Like, they add Aaron Jones as a huge upgrade. Offensive line's okay, but not great. They still got Kevin O'Connell still calling plays. Brian Flores still coaching the defense. I believe the Vikings defense did get better this offseason by adding Gilmore. But they did. But they lost Neil Hunter and they replaced some guys like Andrew Van Giegel, Jonathan Greener, Dallas Turner, things like that. So yeah. So I believe the Vikings will go 7-10. I think they'll be probably back in the playoffs that scenario. Like, who knows? Because Sam Darnold started because JJ McCarthy ain't playing. So yeah, Vikings 7-10. Now we got to move on to the NFC South. Next team we got the Atlanta Falcons at 9-8. I got the Falcons at 9-8 is because I just have a feeling that Atlanta, just feel like I have a feeling they just improved their defense a little bit to like contend in the NFC. They added Kirk Cousins, which has a huge upgrade over Desmond Ritter. They got a good running game, good weapons on offense like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, which has a good move. So yeah, so the Falcons got some explosiveness on offense. But they got a new coach to deal with, which is Raheem Morris, which I think he can do a good job, with his defense, shutting down teams. So yeah, I think Atlanta going 9-8. I think this is the year I think Atlanta, wins the division. Next team we have is the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Bucks, I got them going 8-9 because the Bucks got a tough schedule. Baker is okay, but not great. Offensive line's not great. The receiving core is really good. The defense totally lost some pieces. So yeah, I think the Bucks, and Todd Bowles still a good defensive coach in mine. I think the Bucks are somewhere in that range from like 8 to 9 wins this year. I'm just going with 8 because it's just a tough schedule. But I think I see them at 5 wins if Baker Mayfield doesn't play well and all that. So yeah, I got the Bucks at 8-9. Next team we have is the New Orleans Saints. I got the Saints at 7-10 because their team is just very old. I think they'll take a step back because their team is just very old. They got some old players who are slowing down like Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, a lot of older players, especially Derek Carr. Offensive line is just not as great. The receiving core is still okay. The defense is just like they did improve by adding Willie Gay and Chase Young, but I feel like Kool-Aid McKinstry was a good pickup from the draft, which I think the Saints defense did improve a little bit to be good, but I think they'll stay competitive in some games. So yeah. And also I'm not really a fan of their coaching too, so yeah. So give me the Saints. So yeah, I got the Saints at 7-10. Next thing we got the Carolina Panthers at 4-13. The Panthers, I feel like they did get better throughout the offseason. They added They added a book to go along with the page. And the Panthers, they did make some moves by adding Deontay Johnson to go along with Adam Thielen and like Xavier Leggett, who they got from the draft. Offensive line did improve. The defense outside Derek Brown isn't good, but Evero does a good job, like keeping them in games and all that. Which I don't know how good Bryce Young is going to be. So if he could have like a big breakout season, I feel like the Panthers can definitely be back in the playoffs. So I think this is the year I think Carolina won't do it. So I got 4-13. Now we move on to the NFC West. Next team, we got the San Francisco 49ers. I got the Niners at 13-4. Niners are one of the best teams in the league. A great defensive line, a great offense, passing offense, um, and all that. So yeah, they got Brock Purdy as a quarterback, which he's really good. All lines solid. So yeah, I believe the 49ers, they should be good enough to make the playoffs. So yeah. Next team we have the Seattle Seahawks at 9-8. Reason why I got the Seahawks at 9-8 is because their schedule is really tough, and you know they got a lot of good teams they gotta play against. Seattle, Genos is still a stud at quarterback. O line solid. The receiving core is really good. The defense is pretty good. So yeah, and their coaching with Mike McDonald can probably help them get better. So yeah, I got the Seahawks, going 9-8. Next team we have the Los Angeles Rams. I got the Rams going 9-8 because I believe their defense has is going to take a step back this year. Is because due to the fact that Aaron Donald retired, Ernest Jones left, and now the Rams, saying they don't really have anybody on defense that can play at a high level, which they got a young core that can play really good, who had a really good rookie season and all that. So, yeah. But I feel like the offense will do enough to keep them in some games. So, yeah. And then I'm really concerned about Matthew Stafford's health. Like, if he could stay healthy, I think he could definitely take the Rams to the playoffs and be my MVP vote. So, yeah. So I think the Rams go 9-8 and slightly miss out on the playoffs. Last but not least, I got the Cardinals at 5-12. It's because the Cardinals, have that. I mean, their defense is the least talented in football. But yeah, they got Kyler Murray and all that. So yeah, but they added Marvin Harrison Jr., which that's a good pickup from the draft. So yeah, and the offensive line is so solid as well. They got Jonathan Gannon calling plays, which I don't think he did enough to improve defense. He might deserve to get fired. So yeah, I got the Cardinals at 5-12. Well, those are all my NFL predictions, my full NFL prediction. Now we could get to playoff predictions. Now, so yeah, so we got the wild card weekend. We got the Ravens versus Chiefs. This is a close one, but I could see the Ravens winning this game because the Ravens defense does a good job against the Chiefs offense. But since it's an Arrowhead, I'm going with the Chiefs because I think the Chiefs are a better team. I think Mahomes is gonna have time, and I think their defense can find a way to give Lamar a tough time in that game. So I think the Chiefs defense will win this game. Next game we got the Jets versus Bills. Obviously I got the Bills winning because the Bills are at home, better quarterback. They got better coaching, a better team overall. And I just feel like the Bills can find a way to at least like give the Jets offense a lot of problems. And I think, I don't think the Bills are going to be able to run the ball if they can, especially against that Jets defense. So yeah, I like the Bills to beat the Jets. Then we got the Jags versus Texans. This game right here can go either way, but I'm leaning Texans because I think the Texans are a better team overall. Better quarterback they're at home, so yeah. Um, next, and I just think the Texans, have a better version of the Jags. So yeah, that's pretty much why. And then plus they have a better defense in them, better coaching. So yeah. We got next game. We got the Atlanta Falcons versus the Eagles. This game right here can go either way. This can definitely be my trap game of the week. But you know what? It's kind of hard to choose. I want to say Philly because Philly, is a better team than Atlanta from a talent standpoint. But I'm gonna go ahead and just have the Eagles win this game. I think the Eagles will win because I think the Eagles are a better team overall, better coaching. So yeah, I think the Eagles find a way to win that game in an offensive battle. So yeah. Next game we got the Green Bay Packers versus Detroit Lions. This is a game right here that can definitely go either way. I could see the Packers winning, but I'm gonna say the Lions win because they're at home. They got a better quarterback. I think they're a better team overall, and I just think they match up with the Packers really good. I mean, they can win their one-on-one matchups against the Packers corners, and I think they can run the ball on them. So yeah, I think the Lions find a way to win that game. We got the Chicago Bears versus Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, I got the Cowboys because the Cowboys are a better team, better quarterback. They're at home, better coaching. I just feel like a rookie on the road against that good of a defense like Dallas. I mean, come on, that would be really bad. So yeah, and also I don't really know the Bears really have enough corners to like cover C. Yeah. Which I didn't see Lamb's a monster. I feel like he goes for a breakout game. So yeah, that's why I got the Cowboys beating the Bears. Now we gotta move on to the divisional round. Um, we got the Buffalo Bills versus Houston Texans. This is a game where it can go either way. I'm gonna say Texans win because I think the Texans has a Stephon Diggs era and it has a revenge game. The Texans have a better receiving core. Their defense is a lot better, which I think they can do a good job slowing down Allen. So yeah, I think the Texans find a way to pull that out. Chiefs versus Bengals. This is another game that can go either way. I can see the Chiefs winning, but I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Bengals because I've seen a lot of people, root for the Bengals and people wanting to come to the Bengals game. And I just think the offense can move the ball in the Chiefs. And I think, they can like throw the ball and run the ball a little bit on them. So yeah, I think their defense can do a good job, like containing Mahomes and all that. So yeah, I think the Bengals win that game. We got Lions versus Cowboys. This is a tough one. Um, I could pick the Lions though because the Lions, are kind of a better team. But I'm rolling with Dallas because I think Dallas is just a better version of the Lions. So yeah, and I think their defense can find a way to at least like give the Lions off and Jared Goff problems. So yeah, I think Dallas wins this game here. We got the next game. We got the San Francisco versus the Niners versus the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a game that can go either way, but I'm gonna say the Niners win because the Niners are a better team, better quarterback, better coaching. They're at home. They have better O line, better pass rush now with Leonard Floyd. Secondary is pretty good, so I think the Niners match up well with the Eagles. Really good on paper with that. So yeah, and I think the Niners are kind of a better team than the Eagles. So yeah, that's why I think the Niners beat the Eagles. Now you move on to the championship game. We got the Houston Texans versus Cincinnati Bengals. This game right here can go either way. This could be a biggest trap game ever, but I can see the Texans winning. But I'm gonna say the Bengals win because the Bengals are at home. They're the more complete team. Better quarterback. I just feel like the defense can do a good job. Like slow down Stroud, give him a tough time. I mean, last year when he's played, the Texans kind of like beat them where the Bengals couldn't stop the run and all that. But I think the Bengals are gonna try to do it in this playoff game. So yeah, I think the Bengals win that game here. Then we got the Dallas Cowboys versus San Francisco 49ers. I got the 49ers winning. I think the Niners defense finds a way to like be a handful with the Cowboys' new old line, which is not great. I feel like Dak Prescott will struggle against his Niners defense, which that's good. And I think they can throw the ball on the Cowboys a little bit. So yeah. So I'm going to say the Niners win that game here. Now we move to the Super Bowl. We got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the San Francisco 49ers. This is a game that can go either way. Obviously, last year when these two teams played, the Bengals did beat them. But I'm going to say the Niners are going to get it done this year. So I'm going to take the Niners to win because I think the Niners are just way too physical. I think their defense matched so well with the Bengals, especially with their secondary. They covered the Jamar Chase. They got the pass rush to get out to Joe Burrow. They have the O-line to block Trey Hendrickson. And I think they can win their one-on-one matchups against the Bengals corners and put the Bengals defense in a bad position. And I think Brock Purdy's going to have a day here. So, yeah, I like the Niners to win the Super Bowl this time. So, yeah. Well, those are all my full NFL predictions for the 2024 NFL season. Hope you guys enjoy watching. And don't forget, if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments section below what you guys think is going to win the Super Bowl this year. So, yeah. Well, it's Emmanuel Jones, I'm a big fan. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later in the next video. Peace.